Let's go rapid fire with the questions.
I think this is going to be a rapid fire answer to the question, but Matt, you sent me some questions that you commonly get asked. And the first one was, do you get nerves when you compete?
Yeah, I think so. I think like I get like that feeling in my chest, but like I get a little bit worried if I don't get that. So okay. I feel like that kind of, I don't know what people call it, like butterflies or something like that. I do get a bit of that, which I feel like is just feels like my body's just kicking into gear, to be honest. It's like it's what separates it from just another role in the gym. You get that little bit more, you know, you don't know the guy, it's a different opponent and stuff like that. There's people watching, so you get that. But I feel like if you just, like, what I try and do as much as possible is just reframe that as my body getting ready to compete.
I thought you were going to say no, and that would be that. So just for people who don't know, how many MMA matches did you have?
31 pro, probably like all in for like, including Thai boxing, amateur MMA and stuff like that. I think I had like maybe close to 70 fights.
Yeah. And then the level you were fighting MMA at, you were on Cage Warriors at the top end, fought for the title.
Yeah.
And now, even doing jiu-jitsu, you're saying you still get a bit of nerves, but you think that's a positive. So for anyone who's listened to this and they're still getting a bit nervous at competition, you, with all your competition experience in different aspects of combat sport, you still get a little bit a butterfly before doing some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that's the same for pretty much everyone. If you care about doing something, then you should feel a little bit of that. I think like there's a very few guys who don't get any nerves at all. I think they're called psychopaths, particularly in MMA. Like the guy there's the odd guy who just doesn't show any nerves at all, but that's very rare. And I think that's like, that's unique to those individuals. But yeah, like I feel like this is one of the things that people who haven't competed very much ask me most about, because I think they see the nerves, and I've been there myself. They see like the nerves as like a real barrier. But I did a lot of work with a really good sports psychologist years back called David Mullins, and he was kind of like gave me that idea, because it was something at the time around MMA particularly I was struggling with quite a lot, where if I felt nervous going into it, I almost felt like before the fight, like I had these feelings like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, like what am I doing, why am I here? And it's like the same thing, but if you can just reframe that to, this is your body getting you ready for competition. What is it? This is like your fight or flight reaction, right? Your body's, and then it's almost like it's taking away all the unnecessary stuff and focusing on the task at hand. So it's just something that should happen. It's something that you should feel. And then when you start competing, that's where the sharpness comes from. That's not always there. You know, that's what makes your techniques that little bit sharper. It makes you a little bit stronger than you would be normally. So I see it as a good thing.
So there's someone I wanted to ask you about this, because what I felt is when I stopped competing for a while, was because the last couple of tournaments I went to, I just felt no nerves, like nothing, and I felt really flat. I said, like the last match at World Championships, like I got 2 points conceded in a really easy way, and I conceded as 2 points, and I just felt it's because I felt dead flat when I went out there. Like it was really weird that I went out for something I trained for so long for, and still felt, you know, it was against like a former world champion, and still felt no nerves. Like it was kind of surreal, and it was almost like for years I'd wanted that feeling, like to not have the nerves before. But when I got it, I was like, this is worse. Like this is like it's hard to get going. Like it
turns out I actually needed that feeling.
Yeah, it took me about 2 minutes to get going, and I thought, you know, afterwards, I lost that match, and then it was like it was as heartbreaking without the nerves, but I got none of the good side of it. So I felt like I wasn't getting anything good out of it. I was just wondering, and I thought before maybe that was because I was competing too regularly up to it, and I was wondering if that affected me negatively, like I'd overdone it. And I was wondering if you'd felt anything like that, like the nerves had started to go away, or your performance diminished, or if you're still in that kind of routine where you still get that excitement.
Yeah, I think like think I do just get excited. I think that's what it is, and I feel like, yeah, probably like if it ever happened that I wasn't excited, I would be a little bit worried. Like like if you're not excited by doing something, like, because essentially like competing is a hard thing, right? You're gonna go out there, like, and it's not even the potential of getting hurt so much. It's more like just that feeling of, like that tiredness that you can't really get anywhere else, where you're going to have to push yourself and extend yourself. So there's that element to it, but also I feel like, yeah, you should be kind of excited by it as well, because it's a hard thing. You're putting yourself there because you want to do it. So yeah, I mean, it's never happened that I've not had that feel. I've been kind of like sleepy and stuff like that, but I always feel like a little bit. I don't think I've ever got there and felt nothing whatsoever. Yeah, I might be a bit worried then.
Yeah,
So
like coming back, like I certainly, like, I feel more nerves now than I did. I think like a little break did me some good. I feel like I feel like I perform better now for having some nerves than, like I say, when I had no nerves. It like performance just wasn't there. Just didn't.
Yeah.
So.
you started touching on the fact that you do a lot of matches sometimes. So what's your mental approach to doing a lot of matches and knowing that you're going to be in for a hard day sometimes?
So like, I think the most matches I've had in a day has been, it's either 12 or 13. I keep forgetting. So it's like 13 matches, and it was pretty quick, like back to back. So it was like 4 divisions, but each division going through. So I think like the best thing I approach that with is just to think one match at a time. I think like, if you start thinking 2 matches in front or something, and then you start like, oh, I'm gonna have to take it a little bit easy in this match, then you end up not winning that match, then you don't get that next match anyway. So you just have to do each one at a time. Try not to think too much about what's coming afterwards. Just be ready for that next match.
What about you, Casey? Because you've now returned to competing after a while away. I mean, would you do any if you were facing like a deep bracket or something at a bigger competition? How would you approach it now? I mean, you're back into competing and you're maybe getting like 2-3 matches, but
yeah, I think since come back, yeah, it is like most of my divisions are like 3 matches is the most I'm getting in a day at the moment. So like 3 matches isn't. I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's not like it's just a few rolls in a gym. That so I mean, for me, it's a slightly different one with like being in that position of less matches. It's just making sure that you make, like, everyone's in the same position really. So it's, but when they've got less matches, they'll go harder. So it's almost managing that extra level of intensity which they're going to bring for those ones. I know it's like when I've had bigger divisions, when it's like at Worlds when you're going to get 6 to 8 matches before you get to the final, people are trying to manage their gas early on. So it's almost a bit easier to manage that than the guys who are having 2 or 3 matches. I think something I wanted to ask Matt about was, because you're doing 4 divisions, the thing which I noticed was when I was competing a lot was I'd be doing gi, no gi, and absolutes, like you are now when I was doing adults.
Yeah,
it's different guys in each bracket, and what I find constantly getting fresh guys, and it's not so much it's an issue for winning, but I found that the risk of injury was just going up.
All right.
If I'd had 6 matches in a day and I get to number 7 and that guy's had 1 match, the intensity I bring is I was just finding I was picking up lots of small injuries, like in those later matches, and I was just wondering if you're experiencing the same thing, or how you if you think about that, or something you deal with.
Yeah, it's like getting hit by waves of reinforcements, right? You got like
it's exactly
the next.
It's for no-gi guys that come on later in the day. You 4 hours, and then
so
you
were up early 9 o'clock, your first match in McGee, and he's been sleeping all morning. And
he's cut away, and then he's like absolutely. He weighed in at the same time you did in the morning. He's had 6 hours in his car, relaxing and fueling back up, and then he comes in like a ton of bricks.
I wonder if that mentally just comes down to the 1 match at a time thing, but I've got to not think like at the end of the day, right? I try not to think too much about the opponent anyway. This was like another Dave Mullins thing, but he was always talking about like your opponent as the faceless man. So it'd just be like, if you see your opponent as like a blank shape that just has tendencies, like you might know a little bit about the game, but really like what they've done before that that day in the career, whoever it is, try not to put too much on them. So like, if I know the guy's coming in fresh or something like that, mentally I won't even try and acknowledge that. I'll just be like, right, this is just another match. I'm just going to try and do what I do. Maybe I know a little bit about what he does, so I'll try and match to that. In terms of like the injury risk, I mean, I'm not like, I feel like most of my injuries actually come in the first match where I'm not very warm. Like I feel like because I don't warm up properly hardly ever. I feel like if I'm going to get a tweak or something, it's going to come in the first match. I feel by the time that I've done a few matches, I'm super warm anyway. You know,
I think this is a good segue because it's the thing I always have a go at guys at the most is not warming up. It's like I don't understand the not warming up thing. Like I do like a 10-15 minute
right. So my thing with the warm up is, right, I get to the tournament, like you do your weigh in, or you're waiting to weigh in or whatever, and then like there's the warm up mat's always like there's people just all over it. There's no space on the warm up mat or anything. So like, all right, you go into the corridor and you run some sprints or something like that. I normally just don't bother, and I feel like just being there and just like bounce around a little bit and kind of loosen my shoulders out and stuff, and I feel like I'm good to go by the time that first match rolls around.
Yeah, I suppose this is like we competed really well exactly the same time British Open this year, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
And I think that when we came out of change rooms, I went straight to the warm up mat, and you went over to your mat to compete straight away. But I mean, it probably signifies where we're at. But like for me, like I feel like the first match is still like even after a warm up is where I get like a tweak, something like this, and like. But if I don't warm up, I feel like I'm getting something all the time. It could just be that like I'm 10 years older than you now, so
yeah, it could be 10. 5 years older than me, right?
5 years older. How old are you?
I'm 37. So yeah, okay. I think you and Chris are always 5 years in front of me.
Yeah.
Is that right? What are you 41, 42?
43.
43, shit. Yeah. 5 and a bit years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, like, yeah, I pick up some knocks in that first match, so maybe that points to not having a warm up. And then also like the first match, I feel like that's probably the hardest one on the gas as well. Do you ever get that feeling like?
Yeah, I always feel if like here and here, you know, like if I ever going to feel my forearms, it'll be in the first match because you don't regulate the amount of pace you're giving as well. You just kind of grip on too tight without getting it. Whereas I think I feel like second and third matches will be easy. Like it just gets easier as you go through.
Well, I remember one of the things Carl always told me, and like, because he was quite big on warm ups, and I did like he made me warm up properly before my MMA fights. He used to call it the running for the bus syndrome. So he'd say like you could be like as fit as you like, but if you just stood there doing nothing and then you have to sprint for a bus, you're gonna find yourself out of breath. So like if you do warm up, you're probably gonna lessen the chance of that as well.
Yeah. I do think like wrestlers have this down because like at wrestling meets they have air dines and stuff backstage where you can get like a proper sweat on, you get some like actually get some blood in your lungs, whereas there's nothing like that at jiu-jitsu tournaments where you can really
that's
get
the thing, right? It's you want to. I think that's the main thing with a warm. You'd want to like open your lungs up, go there. Yeah, maybe I'll start. No, I'm not going to start warming up.
I thought maybe get a crock with with an air dine in the back.
What do you think? You say like I'm not going to warm up, and then you said earlier, or maybe I should warm up because you were talking about niggles and stuff. I mean, do you think actually I genuinely don't really need to warm up? I've got this down, or do you think it's like not worth this small percentile gain that could happen to change what you're doing now?
I honestly don't think it'd make too much of a difference. I feel like the way I just feel like I feel good the way I do it, and I don't think like doing the extra for the warm up would make too much difference. I feel like as long as I feel like like maybe this is just a part of doing it so much as well. I just feel like my body almost kind of gets itself ready now. Like it recognizes where we are, and it's almost like, all right, so like the match is 20 minutes away, and now I actually like because if you watch me get out of bed in the morning, you'd be like, this guy's not going to be able to compete. But then by the time I actually stood next to the mat, it just seems like my body almost like kicks into gear. So yeah,
I think it's relative. Like like Casey mentioned, wrestlers. Like, you know, you hear Dan Gable talk about, like, he liked to get a sweat on and run onto the mat, you know, warm and dripping. And then, you know, you get other guys who are like, I can just walk on cold, slap hands, and let's go. So perhaps, you know, I mean, I would say you're probably the best judge given the amount of matches that you've done as to like what works best for you.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, go on, bro.
So I was going to say, I think it's. I mean, it's down to personal approach of the athlete as well. Because, like I said, like Gable's one of my favorite grapplers ever, and he loves to get a massive sweat on. Whereas I've watched Marcelo compete live, and he's just asleep in the corner, and someone comes and gets him for his.
Gunny's the same, right? Gunny, like Gunny wakes up like 2 minutes before the match, slaps himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gunny said he's performed best when he's got a hangover and someone's waking him up just before. Right? Yeah, so
I think like as a final point on that for me as well, I see this like sometimes and a situation I don't want to find myself in is that people are really married to the process of a warm up. So they might have like a specific like almost like ritualistic warm up they want to go through, and then they'll turn up at the tournament and they'll find out that there's no warm up mats, or the match randomly gets called 45 minutes earlier than it should be, and you see it actually puts their head in like a bit of a spin, and they're like, fuck, but no, I've not done my I've not done my full dynamic warm up with, and I don't want to be in that situation where I've gone that far down that route, but I feel like it's, you know, it's almost like something that they have to go through in order to compete. I'd rather just be like ready to go.
On this is something I say to guys all the time, is like you should have a warm up where you can do it in like 2 feet by 2 feet on your own, because guys are like, you know, like most people are pretty superstitious about competing.
Yeah, for sure.
And they need to do something. So it's why I try and keep like I mean, we used to like, you know, jog around the gym, do rolls up and down. So and I've tried to get the warm up more in a small personal space for them. So if they do need to do something, it's just to get that ritual of going through it. So
that makes good sense. So they can do it.
That they're ready to go.
Do it quickly as well. Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything else you think could potentially help you avoid injury other than the warm-up? You said you get asked that question a lot about like...
Yeah, I find like a lot of people like ask me how I don't get injured, which is ironic because I'm currently injured. But I guess for the amount of matches, the amount of injuries I pick up's not less. And I think a lot of it's down to I just try not to have too much tension in my body. Like, if that makes sense, like you need an amount of tension, so you can't go too far the other way. You can't be going in like, you know, like it's a floor roll, and because guys are just going to steamroll through you. But you can sometimes, you almost feel in your opponent sometimes when they're too tense. And I feel like that's when the majority of the injuries are going to happen. So I'm trying not to be like, also from a perspective of like conserving energy as well. I think it's very important, but trying not to be too tense, right? The amount of tension that you probably use in a normal like hard roll doesn't need to go any higher when you compete, if that makes sense. So like if you're having a good, like, you know, like a good roll in the gym where you're both being competitive, that's probably going to be enough. You don't need to take it to that next level, which I think a lot of people do, where they're like, right, this is competition time, I need to, like, you know, like normally I'm going at 80%, now I have to be 100%. And I feel like that's probably where a lot of people are picking up injuries.
I think like a lot of people should listen to that as well, and what you're saying, because it's absolutely, I mean, it's something that I say to people all the time, because I get it very regular, especially like blue purple belt. We'll go to a competition, the other person puts in like a lot of intensity, so they're like, I need to train harder for competition. I was like, no, you need to let them wear themselves out of that pace.
Yeah.
You need to not fight back at that pace. So you need to deal with it without you raising your intensity level.
You see it quite a lot with, especially with white belt matches, where they'll come out and they'll both be like trying to match each other's intensity, but they'll be in the standing position and then they'll both like grip each other's gears and they'll just be like fucking sweet. It's like,
it's what I've said for a while. It's like
they feel the tension and then they have to match that guy's tension, and the tension goes up till they both just stood there like
It's like the worst advert for jiu-jitsu ever. It's just like I spoke to a few people like banging white belt matches at like large championships, Because like if you were to go to like Jiu-Jitsu World Championships and you're a journalist, and the first day you go there is all white belts, and you put that on camera, and you're like, this is terrible.
Just
like,
stood grimacing at each other.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you talked about the tension in the body, because when I first saw the guard jump that happened to you, I saw your leg kind of hyperextend, but my first instinct, I said to the person I was at, I said, "Oh, Matt's rode that pretty well." And they said, "Oh, like how injured is he?" And I said, "Well, I think he's just saying that he's possibly got like a small fracture on the leg, but like the ligaments and all that seem to be good." But it did look like, as although your leg kind of went the wrong way, as you say, I did think that like you took it pretty well, and I think you could have took it worse. You could have taken it worse. Like, I think if there was more rigidity in your leg there, the injury would probably have been worse.
Maybe just snap. Yeah, maybe.
And that, again, it goes back to that question of like, can you train that? Well, probably like you can't train that specific guard jump, but you can train keeping your body in that state where it's prepared for combat, but it's not super rigid, that when things happen, you can just subconsciously adjust.
And I think like this is just going to be something that comes with experience again, though. Like I feel like the more you compete, the more you're going to be able to find that level where you're not, you're not too tense. So yeah, maybe like another advantage of the experience is like, or doing more matches, is that you're getting less injured because you're not being as tense.
Yeah. How do you find the fact that you, because we're talking about there, like, keeping your body in that same condition as to when you're rolling quite intensely or physically in the gym, and then you're competing at the same level. So how do you find balancing like your training with what you're trying to do with competition?
So, well, like I feel like you're sort of competing every weekend pretty much this year. So it's been like training's been a little bit, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's just been a little bit. I won't do too much intense training, but I don't try and measure it. So like a lot of my training will be like, I mean, a lot of the training I do is literally just rolling, because I'm not specifically with a coach who's like running rounds for me or anything anymore. So I'm trying to do a lot of my isolation work within rounds. So I'll be like trying to bring rounds as much as I can into positions that I want to work on, which I think helps a little bit as well, because I'm not like I'm not just going in every open round trying to win as much as possible. So that's been good. And yeah, just like I probably take the level down in the gym a little bit more than I otherwise would as well, because I don't feel the need to roll hardly ever anymore, like, or to roll intensely. Like, I think sometimes if you're not competing a lot, you'll want to get some of those intense rounds in, but then when it's pretty much every weekend anyway, I feel like it's almost like, all right, well, I'm going to get my hard rounds on the weekend. I'm pretty much going to chill when I roll, because it's absolutely pointless for me picking up any injuries in the gym. If I do pick up injuries, I at least want them to be in the competition. I don't want to be injuring myself rolling. It makes no sense.
I think we've spoken about some of our other chats. Something I've been preached for ages. Well, a few things there which you mentioned is doing isolation rounds within rounds, so you're always working on something and developing. So you're not necessarily leaving someone else to decide what you need to do, but you can influence it. But I think it also makes you roll at a more controlled pace. Like if you treat effort like an isolation round, everyone takes it down to about 35%.
Yeah.
Whereas it can be, if you're trying to win the round, like, if you're trying to win training, you tend to up it, and then injuries do happen. So I think it reiterates some of the points for people that have listened to this for a while to just go over again. It's very smart doing it that way. And something that me and Ross have said before is, if you watch other sports, like you don't see sports which are paid like a lot of money where it matters. They don't send their players out, like you don't get like Premiership, like rugby or football teams go out and smash it every training session, because they need them uninjured for the weekend. So they get them to develop their skills. So they try and get them fitter inside more controlled environments like strength and conditioning, and they try and get more skilled within training. And I think it's something that partly because of, I'd say, like in certain gyms where there's like rampant steroid use, they just go harder all the time. to try and fit everything into that one session. And I think what we need to do is train more professionally and without drugs, so that we can see that it's okay, well, let's separate this out. Let's train well, productively, and for development in training, and then you can work on your fitness in other areas and on match day. And like competing, I'd say semi-regularly is fairly important if you want to be a competitor, because that's where you should be developing your match day fitness.
Yeah.
How many hours do you train, Matt?
Probably like 2 or 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. So yeah, I roll quite a lot. So I probably do a lot more rolling rounds than most people I know. So I'll do it depends on the session, but there'll always be I probably do 90 minutes of rolling a day, more or less, over different sessions. And then I try and get into the weights room twice a week, and that's about it.
Do you think you can roll a lot because you are as experienced as you are in jiu-jitsu, or do you think that approach can work for lesser experienced players, or can you get a lot out of rolling and isolate while rolling because you're an experienced black belt?
Yeah, I think definitely I wouldn't advise training the way I train for most blue belts, because if they're only rolling and doing a lot of roll, I think the advantage is I don't know what the actual percentage of the time, but a lot of the time I'm rolling, I'm probably better than the guy I'm rolling with, or I can at least I can put the positions into areas that I want to work. And like Casey was saying, I'm always trying to work on something when I'm rolling, where I don't think you always get that choice necessarily when you're a lower belt. When you're less experienced, you might be, 80% of your rolling might have to be competitive, because you're getting beaten on. So maybe for those, definitely kind of have a coach who's going to put you in more isolated rounds. I think it's always going to be a better way to improve your skills, right? So if you want to get better at whatever, this is the example that gets used all the time. You want to get better at finishes from the mount, but you're a new blue belt. Realistically, how often are you going to be on the mount long enough in a mixed room, so a room of all belt levels, to practice your finishes? Maybe you get you'll do 10 rounds of rolling, but you might get there twice, and then you might get bridged off straight away. Whereas if you do an isolation round, then that's 10 minutes spent in that position learning about that. So it's definitely the smart way to train for me. So don't train like I do. New people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? It is different from what I find difficult sometimes is trying to explain to new people that are coming in that they can't just come and join our advanced sessions, and it's they'll not only do themselves a disservice, they'll slow down the training, but also they're not going to be getting the same advancements that the better guys are, because we usually start most of our advanced sessions with 10 rounds of rolling. And all that happens is the new ones get sort of exhausted during that 10 rounds, and then they don't get anything out of the technical part we do afterwards. So it takes some time to build yourself up into this. So there is benefit in just getting in and just doing isolation rounds in the basics classes and spending time working the positions so that you can do this, because you won't become a competitor overnight. It's like Ronaldo didn't start playing for a professional football team overnight. You had to do, you have to kind of work your way up towards doing this before you can be more in charge of your own training.
And on your training, Matt, where do you typically train? Because I think that you've got your sort of base gym at London Grapple, but you do go to some other places. I mean, how do you find going to different places to train and meeting a lot of different people, having different training partners, etc.?
I mean, really, I do all my training at London Grapple, and then I teach a New Wave Academy. So I'll when I teach night classes there, I'll sometimes get some rounds in with the guys there as well. But pretty much all my training's at London Grapple, which is interesting because training at London Grapple is it's basically like moving around, because you have a lot of visitors coming in, especially so they'll do competition open mats twice a week where they'll have different guys from all over coming in. And then, so like, shit, what was the second part of the question?
Well, basically, my question was, what's training like, in London where you're going between gyms? Because I know you coached at New Wave and you were training at London Grapple, but you're saying you typically do all your training at London Grapple, but then that is like having multiple gyms where you're bouncing around and having different training partners, etc. So like, what I was interested in is like, how do you find that? How do you manage that for your training? Like having to train with lots of people you don't necessarily know.
So yeah, that's a good question. So guys I don't know. So like 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, I would literally have tried to win, especially if it was the first time I rolled with someone. I would have done everything to try and win that round. Nowadays, not so much. I'm much more chilled nowadays. I think like it's probably a benefit of competing a lot as well. I literally like, I feel like I don't want to be one of those guys who like puts everything on what happens in the gym. Like, if we're going to compete against each other, we can probably like, that's what matters. The roles in the gym is just for us both to get better. So I'm not trying to win rounds, if that makes sense. Like, again, same, if I'm working on something that day, even if I'm rolling with a new guy, I'm going to try and work on that thing as much as possible. Not like just drop everything at the expense to win this gym battle with someone coming through or something, even if it feels like, and I think the hard thing is that a lot of the time it can feel like they are, especially I think when you're a little bit like, not saying that I'm well known or anything, but like when you're a little bit known or people know that you compete quite a lot, they might come in with the feeling of like, and I think it's natural for everyone because you want to, it's not an ill will thing. I think a lot of the time, I think people just want to test themselves and know where their level is. So they'll come in with a very sort of competitive aspect of the rolling where like, fine, if you want to roll with that, that's fine. I'm working on what I'm working on. I'm just going to roll. I'm going to roll anyway. And that's probably key to avoiding injury again as well, because then you don't end up taking it up and up and up and just battling.
I think I've noticed from like a lot of the guys, especially like all the best guys that I've rolled with, like when I first rolled with them, have been relaxed rolling with me as if I felt like I was one of their regular training partners. And I think that is something from experience, and I think that's part of the reason why they're so good. Like people that can relax in any situation. I think the main skill about competing or like really with jiu-jitsu is while someone else is going absolute death throes on you, that you can stay relaxed as possible. I think like Gunnar Nelson is like he's been relaxed since he was a 16-year-old blue belt, and that's one of the things. It allows him to develop better, I think, from being so relaxed.
Same thing. I rolled with Giancarlo Bedoni the other week. Exactly the same thing. Like, wasn't trying to win the round. He was just working on his jiu-jitsu. Like just like a really good round with him. Like ADCC champion, but just rolling super chilled. Like obviously had a couple of things he was working on, and it felt exactly like that. It felt like same you say, like rolling with Gunny. He's like, he's good. He knows he's good, and then he's working his game. He's not like trying to win, even though he's generally winning.
Yeah, and I felt like I did this thing because obviously not all guys are like that. But I remember rolling with Alexander Trans, and obviously like he's like 120 kilos and world champion silver medalist, and I was like, fuck, this guy could. I was really on my guard. I was quite nervous when I rolled it because I thought like, if he really goes
like,
to me,
if he explodes, I'm going to break.
Yeah, but he was just like he rolls really just so smooth and technical, and he's just trying to work on stuff, and it's like again like all the best guys I've rolled with are just like that.
I think like I'm always like I'm drawn back to something John Frankel told, or like I can't remember if he said it or he told me about it or something like this, but he was like, especially as he gets older, he's only now interested in guys who can beat him in slow motion. So like if I'm rolling with like some 23-year-old beast and they're just too fast, too fucking strong for me, like they're not doing anything particularly good in terms of jiu-jitsu, but they're just wearing me down, like great, well done, good for you. But there's not too much I can learn from that. I'm more interested in like if I roll with someone and they're just playing chess with me and they're just getting me in checkmate every time, then I'm like, all right, this is a really good guy. This is someone I have to pay attention to.
Yeah, more and more. I just want to feel like it's an interesting round. I feel like like young. You can get obviously young, strong guys who are really good, and it's great to all of them. But the like obviously like the majority of the time, like it's people just trying to go harder and faster. I don't find it very like intellectually stimulating or very stimulating for a role. It's just I've had that so many times. What I want is something interesting from a jiu-jitsu point of view to get out.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I'm conscious of time. I would like, if possible, to ask Matt about like some lessons learned from the year and what his aims are for next year, because I think that'd be a good way to wrap it up.